Hello, my name's Christina. I have the privilege of presenting CSL's Global Headquarters and Centre for Research and Development on behalf of Cox Architecture and our client CSL. CSL is a global biotechnology company established in Australia in response to the World War I influenza pandemic. 100 years on, CSL is one of Australia's largest companies and a global leader in vaccine development for rare and severe diseases. Ironically, we were building their building during the pandemic while they were creating the COVID vaccine. We had a complex brief. The brief required us to integrate workplace, so commercial, research, laboratories and partnership engagement. CSL's global headquarters was about thinking about a workplace for all of their global networks, so 30,000 of their staff, and quite critical to the brief was becoming part of the biomedical community and building a building for 50 plus years. Our client signed a lease of 20 plus years and we were building quite expensive laboratories into our tower, so this defined a very different brief to what we typically deliver. We undertook lots of engagement with our user groups and we created the brief quite earlier on, and the elements that drove the brief was the Spark, which was about strengthening their partnerships to the biomedical community and creating a legacy which is about the workers having a place that they're proud to work at for years to come. The concept was driven by 5 key themes. The key themes were integrated precinct, CSL showcase, green vertical connection, and a workplace as home and the new laboratory. These all were driven by the ideas of the CSL ecosystem, which was to consider everything in it, all of our decisions, from the spatial requirements to the behavioural needs and the virtual environment as well. A vertical village. CSL's previously located on a low-rise campus floor plate, and the idea was that they needed to come closer to the biomedical community, which is quite a globally significant precinct for the world. Adjacent to Melbourne University, the hospitals and all the research laboratories in the centre, as well as engaging with the city. Bring together CSL's people. So the horizontal campus complex, so CSL were located on a site for over 100 years, so it had quite historic buildings and all of their amenities and facilities were quite dispersed and sprawling over a campus site. Our challenge was, in bringing them into the city, was to create this vertical campus for them and connect them. The beauty of our early engagement was quite non-traditional to a fit-out or workplace, is we were able to challenge the base building. The base building was based on a commercial scheme with the core centre to the building, and we pushed out the core to a side core, which provided for more efficient floor plates in how we laid out our laboratories, as well as the work floors to be more contiguous workplace. The building itself is 16 levels. The podium levels have the communal and arrival sequence. The centre holds the laboratories and the plant, and then the 5 levels at the top are the workplace with the bio-incubator spaces, which was a great introduction later on in the project, a startup business on level 10 and 11. Quite critical to our scheme was really creating a clear, definitive circulation path to connect all 16 levels, and this was driven by this central spine that we've called the collective space, and this holds all the communal areas and what became the CSL heart. The building itself responded to the CSL's requirements, so the blades outside the building responded to the laboratory lighting requirements internally, and the new front door for CSL was very much about being transparent and open, inviting to the biomedical community. The tree walk. The idea of the tree walk was conceived as a response to their existing parkland site. The idea was to provide the greenery elements and connect multiple floors at the same time. A sinuous stair network was introduced to create and connect all of their social spaces from ground floor all the way to level 16. Oops, sorry, I went backwards. Starting at the ground level, a dynamic green spine greets you as you arrive into the lobby. Architecturally, it's expressed as an active staircase, unified palette of colour, form and materials, with biophilia concentrated to these areas. The stair openly weaves through the podium levels, creating interesting vistas, and its unified palettes creates quite dynamic spaces and dramatic journey. This is a view from the work floors to the laboratory levels. You can imagine the technical requirements weaving a 16-level building from a fire engineering perspective in a building. The opportunity that was provided to us was CSL's thinking changed from a traditional laboratory to providing a showcase of their inner workings. The tree walk itself became a showcase for CSL where they could tour their partners and collaborators without the need to gown up. The staircase itself changed in form depending on the area, so in the workplace levels became a bit more open and transparent, but still connected to the communal spaces throughout the building. Our early engagement provided the ability to manipulate the floor slabs, which was a really unique opportunity for us. What this did is by introducing set downs and mezzanines to enhance sight lines over multiple floors, it reduced our void area, but also created quite memorable spaces and unique landing areas between staircases that opened up and connected floor to floor. Multi-dimensional. The podium was envisaged as a multi-dimensional active podium. We played with volumes to create the auditorium and introduced a mezzanine which opened up spaces and connected all of the podium throughout. Our planning consideration was quite traditional. We kept it clean to ensure clear wayfinding. There's a north to south arrival corridor at every level when you arrive off the lift lobbies, and there was clear delineation, and we almost use a laneway approach to define and create all of our required spaces. So meeting rooms and auditoriums and breakouts were always created and defined around a clear circulation path. Ground lobby, beautiful and bold in its entry, had a high security overlay and a beautiful greeting reception. Lift lobbies were timeless in their finishes. Our level 1 mezzanine had concentrated of informal meeting areas around our formal meeting spaces to allow people to work as required around their front of house requirements. And the ground lobby became a new visitor destination that also doubled as a 200 plus large forum for activities. The materiality draws upon Australian landscape and hardwoods and soft ochre colours, which complement the eucalyptic green staircase, our tree walk weaving through the building. We really wanted to create a design that resonated with CSL to be able to tell stories for years to come. The ceiling grid pattern was very much mimicking the test tube holders, and the grid structure provided us with really unique ways in how we could play with light, form and pattern. One of the staff members from our office did a beautiful sketch of the typology of the existing site with the new site, and this typology became our artwork grid. Artwork that was created rugs that we transformed in multiple floors. Working differently. CSL had the opportunity to create a building that they could really define the types of spaces in how they wanted to work, play and rest. New 200-person auditorium, a breakout at mezzanine shared by all, a very high-tech technology boardroom aligning with their global stature, and a new ground floor business hub connected to a cafe, but also had this beautiful timeline that told their story about the past and the future and all the growth that they've had over their years. this palette was very much about the CSL bold colours. A working laboratory. You can imagine having to place a laboratory in a vertical building had its technical requirements. This is our level 4 plant level, which made for a beautiful experience as you walk through the building. The planning of the laboratories was identical to all the other floors, so keeping that north-south link to navigate yourself through the building. But the biggest piece that we changed here and really started to influence was the introduction of these working spaces adjacent to laboratory. This was quite unique in a laboratory setting. That means that they were giving up some of their laboratory area to working area that was traditionally separated from the function. But what these beautiful spaces did is they created windows into CSL and also provided warm, tactile environments that were a contrast to the starkness of the laboratories. Yet they were safe and connected into where they worked and where they had to do their meeting and collaborating. There was unique settings and variety of settings throughout each of the floors, so it meant that people traversed through the tree walk to experience the spaces as they all provided a different element and a different setting. Juma, our bioincubator, available for our future scientists. Very exciting add-on that CSL supported. It lives in the heart of the building. It means that scientists have access to laboratories and workspaces to best support the future of vaccines. Integrated work. Our workplace floors, again, planning principles quite similar, but the beauty of our side core meant that we were able to arrange it in a linear formation where we had the central areas as the defined, more enclosed spaces, which became almost an intuitive acoustic layer between the work zones, which were driven against the facade. And then obviously our communal spaces sat either in the centre or in the ends where we do have a level 16 beautiful winter garden space. The spaces that were provided throughout were soft, a variety of spaces, and allowed people to work in weather quiet settings. Big focus for us was all abilities areas, so every kitchen point, every tea point is very much about being accessible to all. We picked a palette that was of the Australian palette, so something that resonates with all of us, but also is timeless and materiality that's durable for longevity. And then we have our beautiful winter gardens at the top that are shared by all. Melbourne's climate does go up and down, so we made sure to engage their greenery into the workspace, but made sure that it could be usable all year round. We hope we've created a beautiful future laboratory and workspace for CSL. It was a privilege to deliver this project and work on this project, and celebrated by all. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Christina. Fred?
I get to kick it off again. Thanks for the presentation. I think the tree walk that you described, there was some really interesting moments. I think being a laboratory office, partner engagement, fit out. You get a sense of what the company is actually doing as you're moving up this green walk. Can you maybe describe the difference between creating a culture within CSL for the day-to-day worker versus your, I think, partner engagement? Yep. Does the partner engagement sessions actually have the opportunity to kind of see behind closed doors as well?
I would actually say the tree walk was very much focused about staff and partnerships seeing into the inner workings of CSL. So for us, introducing this CSL on show theme, which meant that these areas were able to be accessed adjacent to the laboratories, looking into the laboratories, was quite important. CSL needs to get funding. Having partners and collaborators to be able to walk through all of their spaces. So even the plant level has a circulation path with a yellow brick road that all the partners, partnerships, other organisations can walk through. That was really important for us, as well as how staff engaged with scientists. Mm-hmm. Not all the staff there are scientists, some are administration, marketing, the like. for them to have the ability to look into the laboratories and see how they work and operate is actually changed their culture and changed the way they sell and explore and tell their story for years to come. I would say if anything has changed with their culture, it's the ability to showcase how global their ability is and how significant they are in the vaccine and laboratory industry.
Thank you.
Very successful. Thank you. I think it's a very successful workplace project. Like you were mentioning, this was then designed prior to the pandemic and executed during the pandemic. Was there, I imagine, a shift during that process where spaces were rethought during the process? Which of them were, and what will you do different if this was designed after the pandemic?
I love this question because it's actually, the scenario did exist. We had actually designed and documented right through as the pandemic was operating, and there was a point in time where we needed to go out to market to tender, and I went up to the client and said, do we need to change anything? Do we need to evolve our design, change our workplace? And he actually said, no. And he said he believed, and the team believed, that we had provided the variety and flexibility in our design, that it would not just last one pandemic, last another pandemic, if, knock on wood, ever occurred. So the trust they had through that process, and I would also say we had 35,000 plus square metres. It enabled us the flexibility to provide every type of workspace, every type of setting throughout. So that flexibility of at the grander scale is actually where the success is, and the lesser need to change and manipulate to adjust to different ways of working.
I'm just curious because this being a an office for pharmaceutical, and you must have done other offices for corporates before. What were some of the challenges, or what are some of the things that you have to take note of in your design that this is for a pharmaceutical company?
I would say they are a much more traditional company than some of the companies we're dealing with now, where everyone's trying to really adapt and change into the agile working and modern working. CSL being a global company meant that their leaders and the way that they engage, they're a 24-hour operation. So they're working with Singapore one day, Australia the next, Sweden the next. It's actually a global organisation, and that's the part that I think changed our thinking and changed our brief. Traditional companies that are more about this is what's happening in Australia, this is how we're reacting, that's the element that was quite unique and probably needed us to think a little bit more global in how we prepared this brief. So we have probably more traditional spaces, office spaces, enclosed meeting rooms that support any which way of working.
Okay, I'll be quick with the last question. The building, your company did the whole building, right?
We were engaged by a separate developer, PDG, to develop the building originally, and it was then CSL came in later. So it was two very separate engagements, if that makes sense.
So you were responsible for the interior and not for the exterior?
Our company was responsible for both, but two very different teams, two different
teams.
clients
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by the fact that the exterior of the main body of the building is quite soft.
Yes.
And nearest thing I can see to that softness are these rather, well, we know them very well, these armchairs.
Okay.
But you talked about the central feature of your design is really the tree house.
Yep.
Which I like very much. But I can't help thinking that it should have reflected the softness of the exterior.
That's
and been a bit more of a tree house. I don't know if you've looked at tree houses, but the structures have to respond to the way the tree wants to grow.
Yep.
They're kind of more organic. Was there ever any discussion with your team about reflecting that organic nature in the so-called tree house?
Probably not so much tree house, but the organic nature that I think we did try and look at within the tree or the staircase configuration is how the stair actually changed and manipulated from floor to floor. The stair never overlaps itself.
No, but I mean the actual green part,
Yeah,
the wall,
so
the
there's-
the handrail. I personally hate handrails that are just welded at an angle in any condition, let alone when you're trying to imitate nature.
There's a lot of value management and builder constructability that comes into some of these processes. The stair started off as a much more biophilic and integrated with planters and elements along the stair. That changed along the way. And I guess, yes, there's a little bit of a harshness to the stair that would have been nicer if it was softened up, which I understand.
I do love the people sitting at the glass window looking through it's kind of movie-like moment.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.